In this unit, we've broadened our definition of evolution to include when populations break up into different species. But where did the first species come from? This video will cover the origins of life, with a focus on Miller and Urey's spontaneous abiotic origin theory. This video will focus on this goal, explaining how the Miller and Urey experiments simulating early prebiotic Earth advanced our understanding about the origins of life. Cladograms are built on a lot of different types of evidence, mostly molecular or trait-based evidence, but what if we keep going back? What's happening at the root of the tree, and how did life get started? Since nobody was alive to see it, and fossil evidence is limited, the approach to study the origins of life have been taken on in a different way. With the origins of life, people have had different ideas of how it all started. One idea is called the special creation theory, where life started as a special creation of a divine force. Now, this theory doesn't have much scientific support and is largely based on faith. One scientific evidence-backed theory is the panspermia theory, where life on Earth was started or seeded by extraterrestrial life. Now, we're not talking about Area 51 green men or anything like that, but smaller organisms, microbes, that may have hitched a ride through space on comets or meteorites that crashed into Earth. Another evidence-backed theory is the spontaneous abiotic origin theory. This theory suggests that Earth was originally a collection of inorganic molecules, and under just the right conditions, chemical reactions happened that caused the inorganic molecules to become organic molecules. Then, over many steps, the organic molecules spontaneously joined together to create the building blocks for life. So, how did life begin? The truth is, we don't know. But the approach to get to the theories we have now is worth taking a closer look at. A lot of science is built on facts, but since nobody was alive to see the origin of life on Earth, and fossils can't definitively take us to that moment, the approach here is a little bit different. Scientists have come up with ideas about how life could have arisen on Earth, and then sought to show proof of principle. What proof of principle means is that the scientists have set up an experiment or found an example to simulate their idea. The experiment or example shows that the idea or the theory is feasible, but not that the theory is right. Let's check out a prime example of proof of principle with the Miller and Urey experiment. In 1953, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey used an apparatus like this one to simulate early Earth for proof of principle with spontaneous abiotic origins. Their apparatus simulated early Earth atmosphere, early Earth lightning, and early Earth's water cycle. How did they come up with this? Well, two scientists came up with the original idea, O'Perrin and Haldane, in the 1920s, and they said that under the right conditions with an energy source like lightning or the sun's radiation, inorganic chemicals in early Earth's atmosphere could have rearranged by chemical reactions to create organic molecules, the building blocks of life. They were also very specific about the gases they thought were in the atmosphere: nitrogen, ammonia, methane, CO2, water, and hydrogen. Now, you'll notice that oxygen is missing. There's evidence to show that oxygen wasn't present in Earth's atmosphere in large amounts until after photosynthesis arose on Earth. So, whatever building happened, whatever reactions happened, those had to happen without oxygen. What Miller and Urey did, then, was to build an apparatus to test this idea. Well, let's check out a diagram of their apparatus. You can see that the apparatus is a closed system of glass tubes and glass bulbs, and let's look at these two glass bulbs here. This bulb over here contains water, and that was meant to simulate the ocean. The bulb over here contains the gases that O'Perrin and Haldane said were in early Earth's atmosphere, and you see a couple of them here. Another thing you can see in the atmosphere area are these electrodes, and these electrodes provide electric sparks to simulate lightning. the simulation of a water cycle ties all of this together. First, the ocean water is heated. Heating the water creates water vapor by evaporation. The water vapor comes around and mixes with the chemicals in the atmosphere, and sparks provide energy to cause the chemical reactions in this chamber. Over here, the atmosphere is cooled by a jacket of cold water that runs around the outside of this tube. Cooling the water vapor causes condensation in here, which is meant to simulate rain back into the ocean. Well, when the rain falls down, the rain brings chemicals with it from the atmosphere down into the ocean. And the result is an ocean that's kind of a soup of molecules that can mix and undergo further chemical reactions and changes. So what exactly did Miller and Urey find? Well, after running their apparatus for a week straight, they finally stopped it and they pulled out chemicals that were formed and they found amino acids. And this was huge because amino acids are organic building blocks for proteins. And these organic building blocks were made from starting materials of inorganic compounds. This was a big deal. So, did Miller and Urey prove spontaneous abiotic origins of life? No. But they showed that the theory is possible. It's possible that the building blocks of life could have arisen from the non-living conditions of early Earth. Proof of principle. So, what does the timeline of life look like anyway? Well, currently it's thought that Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and that life on Earth originated about 3.8 billion years ago. Now, the improbability of getting life from non-living conditions has always baffled me. I've been a skeptic. How could all of these perfect conditions come about? It seems pretty unlikely, but if you think about it, the time between Earth's origin and life's origin, there's 700 million years between those two time points. And that's a lot of time for these events to happen. So now I'm a believer that these events could happen and lead to the origins of the building blocks of life. Anyway, it's thought that the first photosynthetic bacteria originated about 3 billion years ago, which would have put the abundant oxygen into the atmosphere, and then complex eukaryotic cells arose about 2 billion years ago. So, putting the timeline together, the origin of life could have looked like this. On early Earth, there were only inorganic chemicals. Under circumstances that weren't too unbelievable and pretty ordinary, those chemicals could have reacted to form the first monomer building blocks of life. And that's where Miller and Urey come in, showing proof of principle of this step, inorganic compounds to organic monomers. It's thought that next, the building block monomers assembled into polymers, and then the polymers assembled into the very first cells. Finally, simple early cells became more complex, giving rise to eukaryotic cells. Our next video will explore some of these later steps. So let's recap. The origins of life are unknown, but there are some science-backed theories out there trying to figure it out. One is the panspermia theory, which states that life on Earth started from extraterrestrial microbes that landed on early Earth. Another theory is the spontaneous abiotic origin theory, which states that life on Earth gradually arose from non-living inorganic chemicals that were here from the start. Miller and Urey made an apparatus that simulated the water cycle, atmosphere, and lightning on Earth. In only a few days, these conditions gave rise to organic molecules, including amino acid monomer building blocks. So, was this how life really happened? We still don't know, but these are some pretty good clues.